You're listening to Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We're coming to you from the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations around Vancouver, BC. I'm your host, Bernadine Fox, and this is the show that dares to change how we think about mental health. Welcome to Rethreading Madness.
When I've never been further, knowing what the hell I'm gonna do. When I can't seem to find my way, under or over or through.
If you look up Rose Finlay online, you will find an online quote that says, after a catastrophic spinal cord injury at the age of 17 that left her a quadriplegic, Rose Finlay has continued to push the boundaries of social norms in an effort to dismantle ableism. Her unstoppable spirit and often outspoken voice give her the courage to challenge the status quo, to push forward in creating a more inclusive world with access to opportunity for all. Most days, these days, my guest, Rose Finlay, lives thinking about death, how she will die, and what will happen to her 3 small children when it happens. Not because she lives with a life-threatening illness, but because the support services available to her where she lives are inadequate to keep her alive. What are they? You would think they are some grand, overly expensive pieces of equipment, but it is not. It is something so easily provided, it is shocking. Stay tuned.
Hey, did you know Red Eye has a podcast? You can tune in to Red Eye every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon, and now you can catch our interviews anytime. Look for the Red Eye podcast on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, or a host of other podcast apps. Or you can check out our latest episode right on our website, coopradio.org/redeye.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today I'm chatting with Rose Finlay about being disabled and MAID, basically how the system is failing us. Welcome, Rose.
Hi, Bernadine. Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, Rose?
Absolutely. So I became a quadriplegic at the age of 16, almost 17, and it became very apparent to me at that moment in time that it was kind of me against not the world or the system, but, as soon as I was injured, I had doctors telling me that I wouldn't do this and I wouldn't do this and I wouldn't be able to do this. And even, at 16, 17, that to me felt just unjust.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's cool that that's what you think I'm capable of, but I'm going to prove you wrong. I've always kind of been the, oh, I can't do that. Hold on. You stand there and take pictures while I do it.
Yeah, right. I understand that. So tell us a few things that you have done.
Well, very quickly, I jumped into the entrepreneurial world and was a part of a team that opened a rehab clinic in Toronto at the age of 18, right after my injury. And that's kind of just always been my path because, traditional 9 to 5 doesn't work for me. I have a lengthy personal care routine every morning just to upkeep my health and wellness. And so I knew very early on that I would have to work for myself and be self-employed. So I took a little bit of a break and became a mother. I had 3 boys in my early 20s, all 2 years apart. And then I was right back to business as soon as my youngest son was 4 months old.
Wow.
I remember attending team meetings with like baby on the boob.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been in my spirit to just be a go-getter, a chaser. So I got my aromatherapy certification. Then I went to holistic health coaching. I moved into accessibility consulting and disability rights advocacy in 2015. Since then, I've become an author, a keynote speaker, and a model. And most recently, I got my mortgage license to do mortgages here in Ontario.
Great. So, in your situation, you're located in Ontario. So, what we're about to talk about and the systems that you're up against are all Ontario based in Canada.
That's correct.
Okay. You strike me as somebody who is a real go-getter who did not allow your wheelchair or your accident. You broke your neck, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Stop you. And that is phenomenal. However, you now are at a place where it sounds like you are getting stopped by basically the system that is out there that supports people with disabilities. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like?
I mean, I'm very much a spiritual person, so I look at kind of like the deeper reasons of things. And I suffered a very deep trauma this past winter, and it really kind of sent things into a tailspin for me, which was for me kind of like divine intervention of you got to go to therapy. You've been through too much. It's time to really heal, do some work and heal yourself. And so at that point, after this experience, I wasn't able to work in the same capacity that I was previously. And so, I mean, like it's always been a struggle where I live in a smaller community to get things like reliable personal care support. We don't even have an accessible transportation system. So just then experiencing this event, having all of it kind of come to like a head. I haven't been able to get personal care support. I've also been struggling, to go through therapy and the mental health stuff that comes along with a traumatic experience.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like the perfect storm. It's just the catalyst for me needing to relocate. I've needed to relocate for quite some time. It's not like this is a new issue. It's just now gotten to the point where it's no longer feasible for me to keep going the way I have been going in the same capacity because I'm not well right now.
So is it that because your illness has gotten worse, you're not able to do what you could before, and therefore you need more support, and that support is not available to you? Am I getting
No,
that right?
the support has never been
Oh,
easy to come by. It's
okay.
always been a struggle. At
Right.
this point, I'm just so I experienced a sexual assault.
I'm so
And
sorry.
so trust for me is really difficult, especially where I am. I'm very isolated. I don't have access to the community that I'm in,
Right.
which just makes like trust even more difficult. I'm not I'm not thriving, and without community connection, I feel like my ability to heal from this traumatic experience is it's next to impossible.
Yeah, we really are pack animals. We really do need other people in our lives to move ahead and process things and heal and all of those things. So you're in a small community. How small are we talking about?
I wish I knew the size of the community that I live in. I don't. I just know that it's small. But I've lived here for not the entire last 15 years, but for the better part of it.
Hmm.
And, I've seen the community grow. And I feel like, I mean, the growth has definitely made things more difficult here. However, I've seen a huge degradation in humanity in the last 2 years. Like, first year of the pandemic, people were like, yeah, let's help each other. This is great. But the last 2 years, it has been awful.
Oh, dear. How so? Can I ask?
People just aren't willing to help.
Hmm.
Everyone seems very, at least where I am right now, everyone is very focused on their own survival. And no, and like I can understand that. I understand that myself. I'm in survival mode. But these are people that are otherwise very privileged,
Hmm.
but to them they're in this state of panic. They have things like they're hearing in the news mortgage rates are going to go up by 40% and most people are going to lose their
Whoa.
houses. And and everyone is just, being sent into this tailspin by everything they're hearing. And I mean, I get it too, right? Our economy took a hit during the pandemic, totally. I understand. But if we as a population stop listening to our most vulnerable citizens when they're saying, hey, we're off track here as like a herd, then that's a it's not a good path. It's
No,
not a
it's
good, it's
not.
like
No.
it's like the bees telling us like, hey guys,
Yeah, and
something's wrong.
the canary
Right?
going,
Exactly.
hello, things are not going well. So what support services do you need that you cannot get right now?
Reliable personal care has been the biggest challenge.
Hmm.
And so my main girl is actually leaving to go on maternity leave in a week from now.
Mm.
So that kind of just throws things into more of a dicey situation where it's like I'm thankful to have, friends in the community that are willing to step up where they can, but it's not stable. So if I don't know like the schedule of like, yep, someone's going to be here and someone's going to be I'm living day to day going, I don't know what tomorrow brings.
Right,
Tomorrow might be the day that I wake up and I have no support and I have no way to
right.
go to the bathroom and to eat and to shower and
Yeah, and I think that the general population out there, you know, they sort of kind of hero worship people in wheelchairs and people who are disabled, and they don't really totally understand the physicality, that the reality of what that means. I mean, we put our best face forward, and sometimes what that does is um, leave other people in the dark. So, can you tell me, in terms of your needing to rely on these support services? It sounds like if they did not come in the door, you would be stuck in your wheelchair or stuck in your bed.
that's right. And so that's something that I've run into a lot in this small community is, hiring someone and they're like, yep, I'll be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then 7:30 a.m., oh, I'm not coming. And it's like, well, so now what do I do? And it's a very common occurrence here. And I haven't experienced that previously living in the city. So it's a totally different culture here in the suburbs, and that's fine. As far as the hero comment goes, I always laugh and I joke and say that my biggest downfall is that I have successfully convinced everyone around me that I'm not as disabled as I am,
Right.
because whenever I ask for help, they're just like, "You got this. You're strong." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, no, I don't have this. That's why I'm asking for help." But thanks.
So what do you do when people don't show up?
Call around, call a friend, use my lifelines,
Hmm.
which sometimes pans out. Sometimes, I'm not able to find someone and I end up having to wait until 5, 6 p.m. for someone to come and help me use the bathroom and get up and do those things. Usually by that time, I've been incontinent and it's just not that's not a good
No.
feeling. It's not a good scene, and it's not good for my health. That's why I've been experiencing issues with my kidneys, is because
Hmm.
currently, like, I'm going pee twice a day. And so then when you get a UTI, well, what's the cure? Oh, you're supposed to drink and flush. Okay, well, I can't do that either. So
Right.
then what's the answer?
Right. And they don't have an answer, I take it.
No,
No.
no.
Um, So that's part of the reality. The other part of the reality for you is that you experienced a sexual assault. You need people to come in and support you and give you support services. But, those of us who are as able-bodied that can dress ourselves and feed ourselves and go to the bathroom, we can, if we've experienced that kind of trauma, we can at least do that by ourselves, but you can. And so here you have people coming in who may or may not be somebody doing some really personal touching with you. How has that gone?
Thankfully, the people that I have had providing care for me since the assault have been people that I really trust. So I haven't been put in a position where I have to kind of let someone new in.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that too is my own like defense mechanism, my own protection of saying like I'm not ready for that. I don't think that I could handle that very well right
Right.
now.
Right. And you have two children who have disabilities as well?
I actually have three children, but two of them have disabilities. Yes.
Right. Right. And how does that impact on your disability? Like,
It's challenging, but you know, prior to the last year, I've been very active with my children and I've taught them how to be independent in a lot of ways so that in the event of something like this, they're able to do, you know, meet their basic necessities fairly well. Obviously I'm still providing things for them and I'm always here. I can walk them through things. I can, teach them,
mm-hmm.
talk them through things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my kids have just had to adapt in that way as well. Even with learning, I teach differently because all I can do is talk. I can only
Right.
talk you through it. But
Right.
my kids have kind of adapted to that as well. And we work really well as a little team.
That's very cool. The kids are like that, they, a hearing child can, be raised by somebody who can't hear, right? Of course. And we find our ways of interacting and communicating in language with our little beings, and we do that well most of the time. So regardless of the challenge. Um, I came across your story online, social media, because you have applied for MAID. And MAID is medical assistance in dying. And I just wanted to ask very briefly before we stop and go to the next segment. What brought you to this place of applying for MAID?
My quality of life has significantly declined in the last year. A combination of, the assault and not having adequate personal care support.
Mm-hmm.
And, my life here as it is, I've gotten quite sick, and every time I get sick, I get progressively more sick. I've gone septic a few times, and it's very scary. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I am not able to change my living situation, as my doctor has recommended for several years now, and he's made it very apparent to me that if I do not move to somewhere with better supports, I will die if I continue living like this.
Right.
And so that's a very scary reality for me. And the thought of me going septic and just basically rotting from the inside out in my bed in front of my children.
Mm.
I'm very sensitive to trauma as I lost my own mother at the age of 6.
Right.
So I'm very sensitive to what my children could potentially end up witnessing.
Right.
And I would rather have the option of choosing MAID should I need it. Obviously, I don't want it. That's not my first choice. I would rather, move and get back to work and get back to me and be able to finish therapy and just return to living a normal life and being connected to the world around me. That is my first choice. But I'm a realist in that may not happen. Like our social support system absolutely is not going to help me make
Right.
that move. That has been made very clear to me. If and when I ever got support, that is not in the budget. They will not support that.
We need to just take a little break, Rose, but we'll be right back, folks.
Tanuyap, Quiget Yuans Quinsna. Hi, everybody. My name is Quiget Yuans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanis clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I'm speaking with Rose Finlay about having a disability and looking at the potential, or the possibility, I should say, of getting a medical assistance in dying. Can you tell us from your perspective, what is MAID?
I have always been a big fan and a big advocate for the MAID program. I think that medical assistance in dying is the most compassionate thing that we can offer to people at end of life. However, I disagree strongly with the way that it has been implemented here in Ontario. And I think, the best analogy for that is we put the horse before the carriage. So I think that before ushering in this program, we should have improved our social supports and made sure that our citizens were being taken care of before we're offering a medically assisted death.
Mm-hmm. It seems really clear to me from what you've described that you have a disability that had you been able to, or if you're able to put enough support services in place for you and move to a place that offers more support services, that you would be able to improve your health and live much longer. Am I right?
You are right. That's the crazy part, is that I am not terminal. I do not have a terminal diagnosis. It is my living situation that is of danger to me.
So instead of advocating for putting support services in place, it almost sounds like, or seems like, or comes across like they're withholding the services because MAID is a possibility for you or for other people. And it may not be their intention, but that's kind of how it comes across, right? Like,
I mean, so Ontario has, systemic issues in general. My small community just has a very ableist mindset. Anytime I raise these concerns in community groups, the response I met with is, well, I can assure you that the municipality is doing the best they can. And if I had a dime for every time I heard that, we're doing the best we can, or they're doing the best they can, I would be rich. I wouldn't be in the
right,
situation that I'm in now.
right.
But unfortunately, when we're talking about human rights, Bernadine, the best they can is not good enough.
No, it doesn't sound like it's good enough. Definitely because you're here in this position where you're having to consider MAID instead of dying from what you have. If your doctor is saying that this will kill you, isn't that a terminal illness at that point?
No, because it's not like I don't have anything actively killing me. It's
Yeah.
that if I continue to get sick in the pattern that I have been,
Hmm.
but the only reason that I'm getting sick is because I don't have personal care support.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's yes, I will get very sick. Like, that is for sure going to happen if I keep going the way I'm going.
And that's it. That's the difference. Just personal care support coming into your home and helping you out. Am
Yep.
I? Wow. You talked about moving and that there was a problem with moving to a place where you might be able to get those things. How is that impacted? What problems do you have in terms of moving?
So
Other than the fact
moving,
that you're in a wheelchair and sick. I mean, let's just put that out there too, right?
there's that makes it challenging.
Yeah,
But obviously, it's the other part that just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense is that, the infrastructure for meeting the needs of the disabled are far greater in areas like Toronto, but the cost of living in places like Toronto is astronomical. And,
right.
you know, you're kind of at this point, even like for myself, I'm taking a leap of faith and saying, I that's where I need to be, and I'll kind of figure the rest out as I go. ODSP here in Ontario isn't really a livable amount,
Can you tell people what
regardless.
that is?
It's $1,300
Oh
currently.
no, but what is the ODSP? Is that what you call it?
O ODSP, which is the Ontario Disability Support Program.
Okay, all right. So they give you a relatively small amount of money every month to live on,
Yeah,
and you have three
e-
children.
exactly. I only have two in my care full time, but they're the two with disabilities. So
Right.
obviously, as a family with three disabilities, we need a whole lot more, not a whole lot less.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is, and that's something I've always been very aware of. I've known that our social supports are severely lacking. That's why I, from a young age, went, yeah, I don't think that's for me. I gotta find another way
Right.
to generate income so that way I can live above the poverty line.
Yeah.
And, I'm very privileged to have been able to do that, but I worked my butt off to do it. And I've done it and paid into these social programs that, I thought would be there to help me should I need them,
Mm-hmm.
like every other tax-paying citizen. But now to be at that crossroads where it's like, hey, really need that, just to get me by. And oh, the wait time is 6 to 8 months. But hey, you know what's quicker?
Right. So to get support services, it's going to take 6 to 8 months wait time. I'm assuming there's no way to make an urgent request in there, or you can, how quick is MAID? That's what you're talking about, right? Applying for
Yeah,
MAID.
MAID is a 91-day period for approval.
Mm.
I only have 5 days left before I hit that approval date.
So in 5 days, you will have the approval, and from there, you can decide when and if you are going to go ahead with MAID.
Yes.
Yes. And in the meantime, your community is saying we're doing the best we can, which is really a kick in the gut to somebody who's dying. So, so let's talk about that briefly. You're having problems with your kidneys because you can't get support services to come in and give you the support that you need so you can in fact empty your bowels and your bladder and that's causing you to have, you said it earlier and it's on the tip of my tongue, you have
urinary tract infections, and
which causes sepsis, and that's no walk in the park. I had a friend who went septic, and that was a year ago, and she's still trying to put herself back together from that. It really wreaks havoc on your whole body, and it can kill you, right?
yes, it can. And I've
Yeah.
experienced it a few times now, and it's not something that I ever wish on anyone. And as someone who's suffered a lot of medical trauma, it goes from bad to worse very quickly for me because, I'm hesitant to access the hospital or the healthcare system at all.
Right. Yeah, and we underestimate medical trauma in this world as much as we underestimate, what a disability will have, the impact it will have on your life. And every time you go sepsis, it gets worse. Is that right?
Yep, every time. Well, and it seems that the infections, at least lately, have been more frequent. So
Wow.
it's just it's like I'm not strong. My body's not well in more ways than one. And it's time for me to like the check engine light has been on for too long. It's time
Mm-hmm.
for me to pull over and actually deal with, the problems at hand before I can continue doing all of the things that I'm doing.
I can't get over, I'm just going to say this out loud. I really can't get over the idea that you, this is because you can't get somebody from your community, from an organization that does this, because they can't come in twice a day to give you assistance. I'm blown away by that. Um, I just feel like it seems like such a small thing to be able to provide that's going to make such a huge difference in somebody's life, i.e., they won't die, right?
It's not, this is not my Canada. That's all I keep saying is this is not the country that I was raised in. And the fact that I am raising two children with disabilities, I cannot sit idly by and let this be the Canada that they grow up in and then live in as adults. And
Right.
so not only is it my job to raise children who are strong and resilient and able to navigate, the world with their challenges, but I also would like to impact the country in which we live to create a better place for them to live.
Right. One of the things that you talked about in terms of juggling was, doing MAID as opposed to, I think how you described it is rotting to death, having your children watch you rot to death. Is that the
Yep.
sepsis, right? Because that's kind
Yes.
of what sepsis is. And I just want to say, as a fellow human being out here, that I find that appalling that those are your choices, that we really can't find an organization or a service that would bring in somebody to support you in this. Are there other services that you need?
Yeah, so I mean, even if we bring in, even if it, we bring in a caregiver, that still doesn't give me access to the community that I live in because we don't have accessible transportation. So, and that's a big one for me. I mean, we have a transportation system and it's partially accessible, hit and miss. The bus might be accessible here, might not be accessible there. It's a total mess. It's not a priority for them. And that sends a very loud, clear message to anyone with a disability. And many of my disabled friends, I have others in the community as well, and they say like, yeah, you never really see too many of us other than, the core group of us that kind of are out and about, you don't, and there, we know there's more.
Yeah, they just
Like
can't get out of their house by the
they
sounds of
just
it.
can't, yeah, they just can't get
Yeah.
anywhere, so they stay home.
And you've lived in this community for how long?
The better part of 15 years, not
Right.
the entire thing, thank goodness.
So transportation for you has been problematic in all of that time, or did you have your own transportation at some point?
I had my own transportation at one point,
Mm-hmm.
but I also was in, I've been in relationships, I've been married.
Right,
So I had that spousal support that I don't
right,
have anymore. And
right.
that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely, it does. Um, and of course, somebody who doesn't have a disability and is not aware of disability issues would say to you, "Well, just get a van." They have those vans, right? So,
They do for, the steep cost of $90,000 plus.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
so not only is it, not an easy thing to access because you have to go to, I believe the places are in Toronto, to even explore adaptive vehicles and what that would take to, be able to drive and what you would need. I believe there's OT assessments and things like that that you have to go through. That's all in Toronto. Number one, it's inaccessible to me for getting there. And number two, 90 plus $1,000 is also inaccessible to me. So
yeah. I mean, you live on a very limited amount of money these days.
mhm,
$90,000 isn't going to get squeezed out of that, no matter how you save or try to.
no.
Yeah. We
And
need to
so
just,
while the sorry to cut you off, Renedy, but
that's okay.
while the cost of living in Toronto is higher, it you can kind of offset it in saying, okay, but they have transit out here. My only choice for being connected to the community is to access or find a way to get a $90,000 vehicle.
Right.
So it makes more sense to me to move rather than to stay here and try and fundraise and advocate and make all these changes within my community where I've lived here for 15 years. I've tried this. They're not really interested in becoming accessible. And we have the AODA, which is our Accessibility Act here in Ontario, that states that we're supposed to be accessible, full Ontario, fully accessible by 2025.
Oh,
We are so far away from
no.
that.
I'm in shock. I guess you know, I I'm appalled and shocked that somebody who has your drive and your tenacity and your tenaciousness to take on life, and regardless of your disability, to be left in this place where you are unable to, do sort of what is most people would consider just sort of basic living things, i.e., feed yourself, take care of yourself, or be able to do those things. And it's all because the community will not provide support. I just find it horrendous. And I can't help but wonder how many other people are out there in this same position that we don't know about because, like you, they're not out and about. I know down here in the downtown east side, there have been single residency hotels where the elevator goes out. And of course, it can be out for weeks. And the people with disabilities in wheelchairs are literally stuck in their homes for
Oh my
weeks.
goodness.
So I knew about that, but what you're describing is something, it's like it is like a perfect storm. It's like all the things that you need are not accessible to you at the moment. And we just need to take a little break, and we'll be right back, folks. Hi, everyone. This is Bernadine Fox from Rethreading Madness that airs on Vancouver Co-op Radio every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, is a unique nonprofit community radio station and podcast recording studio that provides a voice for those underrepresented in the mainstream media. They provide the airwaves for Rethreading Madness to examine mental health from individual and important perspectives. They do so with donations from folks like you. If you have appreciated Rethreading Madness and are able to donate, you can do so in 3 ways. With a credit card, you can visit www.coopradio.org. That's www.coopradio, all one word, .org, and hit the donate button on the top right-hand side of the screen. Then follow the directions. Or you can mail a check to 370 Columbia Street in Vancouver, BC, V4A 4J1. Or you can e-transfer your donation directly to admin@coopradio.org. That's admin. A as in Apple, D as in David, M as in Mary, I, and N as in Norman @coopradio.org. Make sure to note Rethreading Madness with your donation. And then come join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Until then, stay safe out there. You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I'm speaking with Rose Finlay, who is a person who lives in a wheelchair with a disability that has gotten to the place where, because of lack of services, she continues to get sepsis. I think you said 3 times at this point. And each time, more than 3 times, and each time they get worse. And so you really, and your doctor is telling you, you really are facing a life-threatening situation here. And you're doing it with a lack of money because, as is true for most people who live with a disability, it's very hard to work. Often they live on a very low income. They lack services. You're lacking services. I don't know about everybody, but you're lacking services and you're lacking transportation, which, if you're not somebody who is disabled and you're able-bodied and you can jump on a bus or jump on the SkyTrain or jump in your car, you may not understand the full impact of what that means to not have transportation. Like, you can't just go to the corner store and, well, maybe you can, I don't know about that, but you can't go grocery shopping without transportation.
We don't even have a corner store within, like, it's actually quicker for me to walk up to the local Walmart than it is for me to even get to a bus stop.
So, and as you say, walk, you are using that as a euphemism, right?
Walk roll.
Okay. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be horrified that I'm laughing at the moment, but I hear you get it. So you are in this position of getting sicker and sicker and sicker. You have 3 children to consider. You don't have money. You don't have services. You don't have transportation, and you are faced with applying for MAID, which is, I think you said, 5 days away from being approved at this point. 6 days, 5 days, 5 days.
5 days, yep.
So, I mean, this is a situation that screams for change. And I get it that you're tired and you're ill, and it's really hard it would be ridiculous for any of us to ask you to make that change happen. But if you could, what would that change look like?
I haven't really come to a place where I have the solutions. I think that it needs to be more of a collective discussion anyways. Right. And so, while this isn't a fight that I can do on my own, so I continue to remind people that the average Canadian spends 8 to 11 years of their life with one or more disability. And so while this may not be everyone's fight today,
Right.
it will be their fight someday. And I can promise you that the day that you become disabled is not the day that you want to get on board with the fight.
No, no, it's true.
So I think that more people need to come to the table and actually have the discussion, because it's everyone's discussion to be had. Everyone needs to be able to be a little bit more empathetic and understanding, and realize that, like, whether it's them or whether it's someone very close to them, either way, disability will touch their life at some point.
Yes, I agree. Now, the other thing people do, of course, is they point to Bill C-22. And Bill C-22 is I don't know what they call it, but it's an attempt to, how would I put that? To level out, to bring people's income up to a certain level if you have a disability. So it's a different amount of money for all kinds of different people, but it is meant to try and reduce the poverty that people with disability face. So do you see this as something that could maybe potentially help?
I mean, anything can potentially help. Everything has the potential to help. However, I see Bill C-22 as a cop-out, and someone called me a conservative conspiracy theorist today, which I laughed about, because I had a conversation with Aaron O'Toole 2 weeks ago and very clearly stated to him that I'm not going anywhere and I'm not going to let this rest until there's change, because I didn't see very much action on his part either. So
I'm sorry, who are you talking about?
Aaron O'Toole.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, he was the former leader of the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
He is also the MP in my riding, which is why he is who I spoke to.
Right.
So that just made it very apparent to me that our government is aware of the issues at hand. They know what's going on. And I think they're using Bill C-22 as a cop-out. They're dusting their hands, they're patting themselves on the back and saying, see what we did? Look, we already dealt with this. It's been dealt with. And I mean, that's great, but that's still going to take at least a year to put into place. And what are we doing for that year while there are still vulnerable people suffering? The government's just resting on their laurels and going, good job, guys, good job. Hey, high five, great, wonderful.
Why is it going to take a year? I'm sorry.
That's just what they're saying, is these things take a year to put into place, to, I guess, all of the moving pieces that need to go into setting that up, which I can understand. These administrative tasks and programs, they take a while to design and find all the guidelines and the parameters, and I get it. But what are we doing in the interim? That's like where we're just going, well, it's just going to take a while. Well, that's funny, because it also didn't take very long for us to come up with CERB, and it also didn't take us very long to get that money into the hands of Canadians. And CERB was $2,000. We decided it was $2,000 a month minimum that Canadians needed to survive. But here in Ontario, disability support's only $1,300. That make sense.
Yeah, no kidding.
So while it's great that we've gone ahead and we've set a federal precedence in saying we have this benefit that's coming your way, we've kind of put the horse before the carriage in a lot of ways again, because we still don't have federal disability laws in Canada. So tell me again how it is that our federal government actually cares about the rights and quality of living of our most vulnerable citizens. Like I'm hard pressed to really feel positive about C-22, because I haven't seen a lot of good faith gestures come from our government lately.
And you're right about CERB. They put that in place within 2 weeks. So they could truly enact it quite quicker. I don't think the amount of money they're talking about, though, would provide you with what you need in terms of services. Like, it's not going to bring somebody in twice a day to give you the help that you need, right?
No, and so I mean that it's a whole separate issue. I don't even want it. I don't want the support from the government. I want to move and get back to being self-sufficient. And that way I can continue this fight. Because like I said, whether you are in need of the support, in need of using the services or the programs, you know, even though I'm disabled, if I go back to work, I'm no longer accessing those supports and those programs. But I'm still someone who actively knows that this fight is important, even for people that aren't in the system.
Right. In the system, yeah. What would a federal disability law look like? Is that sort of like the Disabilities Act that happens in the United States?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the ADA is over 30 years old.
I know.
That's how far behind Canada is.
Can you describe what the ADA is for people?
The ADA makes it so that way it is a person's right to have equal access. Things like, employment, if they're, discriminated against in the workplace. Yes, we have the Human Rights Board here in Ontario, and in Canada, the Human Rights Tribunal. But in the States, the language is very sensitive to disabilities and making sure that disabled people are not being discriminated against. Here in Canada, it's, well, right to the Human Rights Tribunal. Okay, cool. Which really never actually goes anywhere. And, again, in the States, the ADA even protects things like accesses to businesses. It is law that you have to be accessible. That's a federal law. And if you as a business are not accessible, the disabled person has the ability to sue you for that.
Yeah, we need something like that. Right now, we have basically social pressure and political correctness that force people to make things more accessible. But I don't think we have any laws or city ordinance or anything like that. I'll look it up, but I don't think it's there.
No, I certainly don't where I live. And I mean, in Ontario, like I said, we have the AODA, and that just states that by 2025, everyone has to be accessible. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's 2023
It's
and
not going to
we
happen.
got
It's almost 2024. Like, I don't know. I'm of the age, if I blink, it'll be 2024.
right,
So,
exactly. So I mean, they have a long way to go. We all do, as a whole, as a collective, as a country.
So one of the things that I don't think we can leave this conversation without talking about the elephant in the room, which is we need to talk about death. I mean, that's what you're facing here. If you could get the services, you could be more sufficient, you could move, you could basically be alive. But if you don't get those services, you are looking at, as your doctor said, being unalived because of it. And or taking MAID because you don't want your children to watch you die. And to go through that. So, what is it like to face death in that way? I mean, one, I just want to say out loud, and I'm sure every listener on the radio right now would be echoing this, which is this is wrong. The fact that these are your choices is wrong, and it shouldn't be happening, and you shouldn't be in this position, and your children shouldn't be faced with the potential of losing their mother because we can't get services to you. So I just want to say that to begin with. I'm sorry this is happening to you. But then I also want to ask, what is that like to have to make this choice?
It's been really gut-wrenching at times. My own mother was my age when she passed away. And my youngest son is the same age that I was when my mother passed away. And so that in and of itself is like just very profound and impactful for me. I have faced my mortality more than once already in this lifetime. So as far as me having made peace with it, I can face death. That doesn't seem so frightening to me, except for the fact that I have children. I like leaving my children in this world in this state, the way it is the most terrifying thing to me right now. And my children in general, like my disability didn't necessarily make sense to me, even doing the advocacy work that I've done, until I had children and until they became disabled. And then it was like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to lead these little beings in this world. And I can relate to them in ways that, their father can't. And so it has created a special bond between my kids and I, but my kids have also watched me become critically ill before as well. In 2018, I was given 3 weeks to live, and my kids watched me waste away to skin and bone. It was horrifying and traumatic for them. So again, this is why I'm so sensitive to what they see. And if I didn't have my kids, I wouldn't be telling my story. I wouldn't be speaking out. I wouldn't be advocating as fiercely as I am. But I need to survive because my children need me.
Yeah, and that is an important part to say in this, is that you are not seeking death, you are seeking life and weighing the options, which are untenable, as to what's in the best interest of your children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's I'm sorry, I just get I'm appalled. I get appalled by our society that you would be put in this position of having to make those untenable choices. You have a GoFundMe account. I want to talk about that in a bit, but I also want to ask you if you could have the changes made right now. What would they be? What would that look like for you?
Federal disability laws, I think, are the most important thing, because those can trickle down, all throughout our country. I would love if Canada was inclusive, accessible. I just wish that more people could understand that most disabled people can do everything that everyone else can do. We just need two things: support and access.
Right. Support and access. Who right now in our current government would be responsible for creating a federal disability law? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it just has to be brought the same way a bill would, and then passed the same way through Senate.
All right, cool. So that's one thing. What else? If you could have your life the way you need it to be, what would it look like?
Well, my kids and I would be settled in the city. That way I can, secure the personal support that I need, get back to work, get back to supporting and providing for my children, and get back to being me, because I'm not done here in this life. I've got a voice and I've got things that need to be heard, and I can't do that in the fullest capacity that is required in order to make change until I'm able to be safe, secure, and well. So I mean, and selfishly, yes, I need that. I need that to be a productive member of society. I need that to be a good mother. It's not totally self-serving of me to say, I want to work, I want to make change, I want to My kids need to see me do those things.
Yes.
So they know how to navigate their own challenges.
Right. I agree. You have a GoFundMe page?
I do. The links are all over the place. And I'm sure that you can post them as well.
I will absolutely do that. I am looking at your Instagram page. It says wheelchair, the number 1D. So wheelchaired with a 1 instead of an L. ER woman. Am I saying that right? Wheelchaired woman?
No, it's wheelchair Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. So wheelchair, the number 1 woman, all one word. Okay. And that gives a link tree. Does the link tree go to your GoFundMe page?
It does. You can find all of my links there.
Great.
You can
Yeah,
get
I'm
the
looking
link
at
to my
them.
website, grab my books, all that good stuff.
You have
Pretty
books.
much everything. I do.
We haven't talked about your books.
Well, I'm a 3-time published author.
Wow. And what are your books about?
Life, like life experience, transformation, truth, vulnerability. My strength really over the years has been my ability to be authentic and transparent in sharing my own experience as a human. And that's what I've done in my books. Different chapters represent, different parts of my life. And yeah, you can check out all the information on my website. I have a blog as well.
Yeah, I see that here. Your link tree, I love link tree. So I will make sure that that link is up on our website when we and available when we put it onto podcast, so that people can find you and access you, and if they can, contribute to your GoFundMe page. And I'm assuming your GoFundMe page will help you move to Toronto, get the services that you need.
That is the hope and wish and prayer. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm also running into, problems with the fact that the Toronto rental market is very competitive and difficult to get into. So we're just kind of navigating that one right now and trying to find something that will work for my accessibility needs and accommodate my kids as well.
If you had more money, would you be able to hire someone yourself to come in and give you a hand twice a day?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, I could try, but it's the area just doesn't have the manpower. We don't have the people, and the people that I've been, that I've hired over the years, they're not reliable. Like, I hire them and they don't show up, and they don't, understand how important it is that they show up. So support is really difficult to come by in this community.
So sorry. Well, let's hope that people hear this and help you work for change, because it's desperately needed. Definitely. Thank you, Rose, for coming and chatting with me about this difficult topic. You are a great speaker, and I'm very, very honored that you came and did this with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And we'll be right back, folks.
How can you protect your keys? Simply attach a War Amps key tag to your key ring. If you lose your keys, the War Amps can return them to you by courier for free. War Amps key tags. They're free and they work. Order yours at waramps.ca.
And that's our show. My thanks to Rose Finlay for discussing her difficult situation with us and bringing an awareness of what can happen to people who are disabled, and how a lack of services will take a livable disability and take their lives away. Although we have never done this before, it is important to use our voice and privilege here on Rethreading Madness and help Rose. You can do this through her GoFundMe page, which you can find through Rose's link tree found on her Instagram page. Wheelchair, the number 1, DER woman. Wheelchair, the number 1, DER woman, all one word. And then follow Rose and her journey. Rethreading Madness is now aired on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, on Tuesdays at 5 p.m., on CJUM in Winnipeg on Monday at 9 a.m., and then on CKXU in Lethbridge on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. You can also find us on the Mental Health Radio Network and wherever you download your podcasts. Our thanks to Ulrich for the gift of her music, and more importantly, and as always, my thanks goes out to you for joining us today. Stay safe out there. You've just listened to Rethreading Madness, where we dare to change how we think about mental health. We air live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. or online at coopradio.org. If you have questions or feedback about this program, or want to share your story, or have something to say to us, we want to hear from you. You can reach us by email, rethreadingmadness@coopradio.org. This is Bernadine Fox. We'll be back next week. Until then.